Welcome back to Western Flavors, Heartland fans. Before we dive into today's story, let's recap the massive cliffhanger from Part 5. We saw the heartwarming and joyous reunion between Ty and his best friend, Caleb, only for the moment to be shattered. In a misguided attempt to explain the past, Caleb revealed to Ty that Nathan had once kissed Amy. We were left on the edge of our seats as a cold, silent rage consumed Ty, and he stalked off, leaving a panicked and guilt-ridden Caleb in his wake. If you missed that incredibly tense episode, you'll definitely want to go back and watch Part 5 first to get caught up. The link is in the description below. Now, in today's story, the fallout begins. A frantic Caleb must warn the family, and Amy has to decide how to confront a husband who is now a ticking time bomb of anger and betrayal. Let's get into it. The setting sun painted the vast Alberta sky in brilliant streaks of orange and purple, but Caleb O'Dell saw none of it. He sat frozen on the tailgate of his truck, the half-finished beer forgotten in his hand, its cold seeping into his skin unnoticed. He stared at the spot where his best friend had vanished. The image of Ty's rigid back and the terrifying stillness on his face burned into his mind. The cheerful, boisterous joy of their reunion had curdled into a sick, heavy dread that coiled in his stomach. He replayed his own words in his head, each one a monument to his own stupidity. He even kissed her once. Why had he said that? What had he been thinking? He had wanted to show Ty the depth of the miracle of his return, to illustrate the edge of the cliff from which Amy had been pulled back. Instead, he had just pushed his friend, a man already standing on a precarious emotional ledge, right over the side. The silence Ty had left behind was more frightening than any angry shout could have been. It was the silence of a fuse being lit. A quiet, methodical countdown to a detonation. Panic, cold and sharp, finally broke through his paralysis. He had to get to Amy. He had to warn her. He couldn't undo what he had said, but he couldn't let her walk into the fallout unprepared. He scrambled off the tailgate, his boots kicking up dust as he sprinted towards the warm, inviting lights of the Heartland house. Inside the kitchen, the atmosphere was the complete opposite of the turmoil in Caleb's heart. A sense of light, hopeful peace had settled over the room for the first time in what felt like an eternity. Amy was leaning against the counter, a genuine, untroubled smile on her face as she spoke with Jack. They had both witnessed the reunion from the porch, had seen the pure, uncomplicated joy on Ty's face, and it felt like the first real sign that the man they knew and loved was truly coming back to them.
I haven't seen him laugh like that since before,
Amy said, her voice soft with relief.
It was good. Seeing him with Caleb, it was what he needed.
Jack nodded, his own expression lighter than it had been in days.
Sometimes the best medicine isn't a doctor. It's a friend who remembers who you were before the world broke you.
He was about to say more when the kitchen door burst open, crashing against the wall. Caleb stood in the doorway, his chest heaving, his face pale and slick with a sheen of panicked sweat. His eyes were wide with a frantic, desperate energy that instantly shattered the peaceful atmosphere. Amy's smile vanished.
Caleb, what is it? What's wrong? Where's Ty?
Caleb stumbled into the room, running a hand through his hair, unable to meet her eyes. He was breathing hard, the words tumbling out of him in a rushed, panicked confession.
Amy, Jack, I messed up.
He started, his voice strained. I messed up bad. We were just talking, out by the truck, catching up. I was trying to make him understand what you went through, how hard it was for you. He finally looked up at Amy, his eyes full of a deep, profound guilt.
I wasn't thinking. The words just came out. I told him about Nathan.
Amy's heart gave a painful thud. A cold dread began to creep up her spine, but she held on to the hope that he had kept it general.
What did you tell him about Nathan?
Her voice was a tight whisper. Caleb winced, the words catching in his throat. He knew there was no way to soften the blow.
Everything. That he was a good guy, that he was there for you. And then I told him about the kiss.
The word hung in the air, a poison dart that found its mark in the heart of the room's fragile hope. Jack's expression hardened, his posture stiffening as he absorbed the full, catastrophic weight of Caleb's mistake. Amy felt the air leave her lungs, a silent, painful rush. For a moment, she didn't feel anger. There was no room for it. All she felt was a sudden, bone-deep, icy dread. All the progress, all the fragile trust they had started to build since the day on the ridge, all the quiet moments, the shared glances, the foundation of a new beginning she had so desperately hoped for. She could feel it all turning to dust. She knew Ty. She knew the raw, gaping wounds of his insecurity, his deep-seated fear of being replaced, of not being enough. And she knew that Caleb's words, however well-intentioned, would not have been heard as context. They would have been heard as confirmation of his greatest fears. She sank slowly onto a nearby kitchen chair, her legs suddenly unable to support her. Caleb started to apologize again, his voice a frantic buzz in her ear, but she didn't hear him. Her mind was racing, picturing Ty, alone somewhere on the ranch, the poison of those words seeping into him, twisting his grief into a new and dangerous shape. She looked up, her face pale, her eyes wide with a fear that was not for herself, but for him. The first words she spoke were not an accusation, but a terrified, urgent question.
Where did he go?
Caleb could only shake his head, his face a mask of miserable guilt.
I don't know,
He said, his voice cracking.
He just walked off, towards the back fields. I've never seen him look like that, Jack. Not even after everything. It was cold.
The description sent a chill through Amy's already terrified heart. A volatile, angry Ty was one thing. A cold, quiet Ty was something else entirely. It was the stillness of a predator, the focused calm before a devastating strike. Jack's expression was grim. He placed a steadying hand on Amy's shoulder, his touch a small anchor in her sea of panic.
All right.
His voice was a low, commanding rumble that cut through the frantic energy in the room. He was taking charge.
Caleb, you stay here. Don't go after him. The last thing he needs right now is to see you.
The words were not unkind, but they carried the weight of an order. Jack then turned to Amy.
He won't go far. This is his home. He's hurting, and he's angry, and he's going to find a quiet place to let that poison fester. We need to get to him before it does.
He pulled his phone from his pocket, his movements deliberate and calm.
You're going to need your sister.
The phone call to Lou was brief and to the point. Jack explained the situation in a few clipped, concise sentences. There was no need for dramatic embellishment. The facts themselves were explosive enough. The call ended with a simple promise from Lou. I'm on my way. The half hour it took for Lou to arrive was a masterclass in suspended animation. Caleb paced the kitchen like a caged animal, muttering apologies to himself. Amy sat at the table, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea she had no intention of drinking, her mind racing through 1,000 disastrous scenarios. Ty was out there, somewhere on the vast expanse of Heartland, consumed by a rage born of a truth she had never intended for him to hear. Not like this. Lou's arrival was a whirlwind of pragmatic energy. She swept into the house, her face a mask of fierce, protective concern, her eyes immediately finding Amy's. She didn't waste time with pleasantries.
Where is he?
We don't know.
Amy whispered.
Somewhere on the property. He just walked off.
Okay.
Lou said, her mind already shifting from crisis assessment to strategic planning. The four of them, Amy, Jack, Lou, and a guilt-ridden Caleb hovering in the background, gathered in the living room. It felt less like a family discussion and more like a council of war. Lou was the first to lay out a strategy, her voice sharp and direct.
Here's what you do, Amy. You find him. You don't wait for him to come storming back here. You get ahead of this, you control the narrative, you walk right up to him and you tell him the facts.
She began ticking points off on her fingers.
1, you thought he was dead. 2, you were grieving and you were allowed to have a moment of human connection. 3, it was a single kiss that meant nothing and it happened years ago. You do not apologize. Evie's nothing to be sorry for. You do not let him use his pain to make you feel guilty for surviving. You shut it down, hard and fast.
Her advice was a shield, a pragmatic defense designed to protect her sister. It was logical, it was strong, and it was, in its own way, an act of love. When she finished, a heavy silence filled the room. Amy looked down at her hands, the force of Lou's strategy feeling both empowering and impossibly confrontational. Then Jack spoke, his voice a quiet counterpoint to Lou's sharp directives.
Your sister's right about one thing. You do need to talk to him.
He looked at Amy, his eyes full of a deep, sorrowful wisdom.
But she's wrong about how you do it. This isn't about a kiss, Amy. It never was. A kiss is just a symbol. It's the proof his insecure heart was always looking for, that he'd been replaced.
He leaned forward, his expression earnest.
That anger Caleb saw? It's just a shield. It's the only thing he has to protect himself right now. Underneath all that rage, he's just terrified. He's terrified that he's not the man you loved. Terrified that he's failed you and Lindy, and terrified that another man was better for you than he ever was. If you go in there with facts and arguments and telling him what he has no right to feel, you'll just be fighting the shield.
He paused, letting his words sink in.
You have to talk to the man behind it. You have to let him be angry. You have to let him be scared. You have to listen to the fear that's fueling the anger. Acknowledge his pain first. And then, only then, when he's been heard, you tell him the truth.
Two paths, one of firm, defensive logic from Lou, one of vulnerable, empathetic risk from Jack. Both were born of love, but they led in completely different directions. Amy sat trapped between them, the fate of her fragile, newly resurrected relationship hanging on the choice she would make. Defend her past, or try to heal his. The weight of the decision was immense, and she had no idea which path wouldn't lead them both off a cliff. Amy sat in the heavy silence of the living room, caught in the crosscurrent of the two people she trusted most in the world. Lou's advice was a fortress, a set of high, strong walls designed to protect her from any further pain. Go on the offensive, state the facts, give no ground. It was the advice of a pragmatist, a survivor. Jack's advice was an open door. It was a vulnerable, terrifying path that required her to walk willingly into the heart of Ty's pain, to meet his rage not with a shield, but with an open hand. One path protected her. The other offered the only real chance of saving them. She took a deep, steadying breath, the scent of old leather and wood smoke from the fireplace filling her lungs. She thought of the man she had married, the boy she had healed, and the ghost who had returned. She thought of the cold, terrifying stillness Caleb had described. Lou was right, she had nothing to apologize for. Her survival was not a sin. But Jack was right too. The anger was a mask, a crude shield hiding a wound so deep Ty himself probably couldn't see the bottom of it. To fight the shield would be pointless. Her decision settled not with a crash, but with a quiet, solemn clarity. She would not choose one path over the other. She would walk her own. She would meet him with the empathy Jack spoke of, but she would arm herself with the unapologetic truth Lou had championed. She would honor his pain, but she would not carry his shame. She stood up, her movement drawing the eyes of everyone in the room. Her expression was no longer one of fear or confusion. It was one of profound, sorrowful resolve.
I know where he'll be,
she said, her voice quiet but firm. She walked out of the house without another word, leaving them to their anxious vigil. The sun was low in the sky, casting long, dramatic shadows across the fields. The air was cool, the world bathed in the melancholy gold of a dying afternoon. She didn't head for the barn or the stables. She walked the familiar path that led deep into the Heartland property, towards the clearing on the low hill that overlooked the creek. Their clearing. The place where a lifetime ago they had stood and mapped out a future, pointing to where they would build their house. Where Lindy would have a swing, where their life together would truly begin. Now, it was just a beautiful, empty patch of land, haunted by the ghost of a dream. She saw him as she approached. He was standing in the very center of the clearing, his back to her, staring at the empty space where their front door was supposed to be. He was unnaturally still, a solitary, rigid figure silhouetted against the setting sun. All the warmth and joy from his reunion with Caleb had been burned away, leaving this cold, hard remnant. She stopped a few yards behind him, the soft grass muffling her footsteps.
Ty.
He didn't turn around at first. When he finally did, his face was a mask of cold, controlled fury, his eyes glittering with a pain so intense it was almost black.
I was just wondering.
he said, his voice a low, chilling monotone that was far more terrifying than a shout.
Was this where you brought him to? Did you stand here with him and plan out your new future?
The accusation was cruel, designed to wound, but Amy held her ground. She had prepared for this.
Did you talk about how you'd raise my daughter? Did you tell him about the kiss by the creek? Or was that just a spontaneous little moment?
He finally started moving, pacing the clearing like a caged wolf.
Caleb told me everyone was just so happy for you, Amy. Happy you were finally feeling something. So what was it? Was it pity? Or did you just get tired of waiting?
She let him unleash it all. She stood perfectly still, absorbing the barrage of his pain, his jealousy, his profound, unfair anger. She let him empty himself of the poison, her expression never changing from one of deep, unwavering sorrow. When he finally stopped, his chest heaving, the clearing fell into a ringing silence, broken only by the sound of the wind in the pines. She took a slow step towards him.
I hear you, Ty.
Her voice was soft, but it carried an undeniable strength.
I hear how much this is hurting you. And for the pain you are feeling right now, I am so sorry.
He looked at her, ready for a fight, for a defense, for tears. He was not ready for her next words.
But I will not apologize for surviving.
Her tone shifted, the softness hardening into a core of pure, unyielding steel.
I will not be ashamed that I found a single moment of human kindness in 2 years of absolute, soul-crushing hell. I wasn't a person, Ty. I was a ghost. I was a shell, hollowed out by a grief so big I was drowning in it. And that kiss, it meant nothing, less than nothing. It was a sad, pathetic, lonely moment that proved I was still capable of feeling something. And the only thing I felt right after was a wave of guilt so powerful it almost knocked me to my knees, because the man I wanted to be kissing was dead.
She took another step, her eyes locked on his, clear and bright with unshed tears.
You have every right to be angry, but your anger is with the 2 years that were stolen from us. It's with the explosion, with the amnesia, with the universe for letting this happen. Don't you dare make it about him. And don't you dare try to make it about me.
Her words, a perfect fusion of Jack's empathy and Lou's fierce truth, struck him with the force of a physical blow. His rigid, angry facade didn't just crack, it shattered. The cold fury in his eyes dissolved, and the raw, terrified grief it had been shielding was laid bare. A strangled sob tore itself from his chest. The shield was gone, and the broken man behind it was completely undone. He stumbled back, his legs giving out, and sank to his knees in the soft grass where their home was supposed to be. The fight was over. Amy closed the final distance between them, her own tears now flowing freely. She knelt in front of him and wrapped her arms around his shaking shoulders, pulling him in. He collapsed against her, his face buried in her neck, and for the first time since he had returned, he truly, completely broke down and cried. She just held him, her hand stroking the back of his head, offering silent comfort as years of loss and fear, and a pain too big to name, finally found their release under the twilight sky.